In the years of Karpov supremacy in the world, there are many strategic methods that were tightly connected with his name. And some of his fellow grandmasters, fellow world champions, apparently did not feel quite all right with this attitude. I remember having read a commentary by Botvinnik on one of his own games, played in the 50s maybe or 60s, in which he completely dominated the position with black. And Botvinnik stated something like, this is a clear proof that the method of domination was not invented by Anatoly Evgenievich Karpov. Of course, it was a lot of irony in this comment, and but one thing is clear. Of course, Karpov did play some great chess, but of course he had also learned certain things from the previous world champions and great players. And I have already mentioned some pre-Karpovian elements in Fischer's game against Philip, and now I'd like to show another game, once again from the Palma de Mallorca Interzonal, in which Fischer did constantly what Karpov used to do very well too, meaning restricting black's counterplay, maintaining the space advantage, and completely avoiding black's counterplay. In fact, I've seen this in the game against Spassky, but the structure and the variation played there, let's say, were not really typical for Karpov. But now we'll see a game in which Fischer used a variation that also later became a trademark of Karpov. So he played Taimanov. Who used this so-called Paulson-Taimanov variation, which bears his name, knight b5, d6. Now in the match that in which he crashed Taimanov just 1 year later, Fischer usually played bishop f4, e5, bishop e3. This is actually Sveshnikov with the next attempt for black, but by those times the Sveshnikov was not even named like this. It was named Pelican, and it was considered a dubious opening. But in this game, in Palma de Mallorca, Fischer, maybe he didn't want to reveal his secret analysis, and he played c4, which is very much what Karpov used to do. Knight f6, bishop e2. Okay, the move order is slightly unusual. Usually the knights get these squares in another move order, but okay, it's transposing. Okay, so this is a normal tabia. The bishop b7 is the normal move here, but Taimanov was also an original player, and he played bishop b7, not really analyzed in theory too much. The plan is to prepare b5, because with the knight on a3 and c3, it seems hard to prepare this freeing move. But at the same time, with the bishop on d5, black has such a plan: queen b8, rook a7, rook b7, and finally b5. Okay, and knight e5, of course, on the way. And then the bishop would be very, very useful on d7. Rook c1, queen b8. Okay, all these are normal moves. And now, for the first interesting moment we have here. Usually, white keeps his knight on a3 for a long time in this variation. The knight, well, Sarash had his ideas about the knight on the edge of the board. But still the knight is useful because it defends c4, it controls b5. So usually in this line, white would play something like queen here, then queen f2, rook f d1, and eventually at some point he would recycle the knight. Maybe to b1, or to c2, but only later. Um, but this is usually the case with the pawn with the bishop on b7. With the bishop on d7, it may be not such a good idea because after rook b8 and knight e5, white would have the surprise that he would not be in time to stop b5. So Fischer obviously did not want to allow Taimanov such an easy life. He played knight c2 before having completed his development. His main idea being that after a few more preparatory moves from both sides, his main idea was that he can stop a5, b5 physically with a4. It is also true that a4 is a double-edged move. It prevents the counterplay, but at the same time it puts another pawn on a light square, and it allows black to play for a blockade on dark squares. Many years later, Taimanov published a small book which is titled something like "I was Fischer's victim," and he mainly analyzes the match, in which he was destroyed with 6-0, but he also analyzes this game. And his comments are not bad, are quite instructive, but I cannot help thinking what Botvinnik once wrote about Taimanov. He said that Taimanov is very talented, he understands chess very well, but he has one major drawback, keeping him away from becoming an even stronger player. He does not have doubts, he does not like to have doubts on the way of searching the truth. So if he would see something glittering, he would immediately think that it's gold. So this makes that Taimanov was kind of original and optimistic player, but not all his comments and evaluations are accurate. For instance, he already considered that black has a great position, which is not really true. After all, he's still defending on 3 rows, with the exception of the a5 pawn. And then we have this weakness on b4, but there is also this weakness on b5. It's not very obvious how white can get there, but we'll see that Fischer eventually got there. So it means that Fischer's strategical vision was quite long-sighted. He knew that there was a chance that at some point a rook got there. Okay, I will give you a hint. It's not very obvious by now, but a white rook got on b5 with decisive effect already. For the time being, okay, he exchanged his knight, which has lost a lot of time already. And now the first critical moment arrives. Obviously, black wants to play knight c5 at some point to block the queens and then even start putting some pressure on the b3 and a4 pawns. Queen g3 is a normal move. It more or less forces bishop f6, but bishop f6 made part of black's plan anyway, because she wants to exchange the dark square bishops. And again, it seems that black has achieved many strategic goals. This blockade on dark squares seems to be in sight already. But there is a problem. He still has to cross the d7 square, the d file, with his knight in order to get to c5 and to get an active position. And this means that white can try to prevent it by placing a rook on d1. Actually, there is some criticism I would make here on Fischer's last move. Fischer, like Smyslov, even though he did not express it clearly, liked harmony in the position. And of course, I mean, I suppose he did not doubt too much which rook really belongs to d1, because the c1 rook was developed already, and then he thought, okay, the rook's in the center. But the problem is the the next part of the game will reveal that rook c d1 would be stronger, because with the rook on f1, f4 would become much stronger. Let's just make the same move as in the game without explaining anything. And now we see that already there are some strong threats. Rook takes f6 is a threat, followed by knight d5. And if g5, then simply queen takes h4. This check. It is better to force the king occupy an unfavorable square. And now white has a pawn for the exchange and a decisive attack. The black king is very weak. Okay, Fischer play rook fd1, e5. Now it seems that knight d7 cannot be avoided. And queen h4, another strong move. The main thing is that after knight d5, white can go like this. Queen d8, rook b8, queen g5. And since queen d2 is not possible, black's counterplay and the compensation for the pawn is okay. It's real, but probably not enough for equalizing. And Taimanov found a very interesting move, h6. He was proud of it actually. Now in the same line, the queen cannot retreat to g5 anymore, which means that queen d2 would offer black a very strong initiative. But at the same time, I don't think that Taimanov can rely on the fact that he tricked Fischer, because by provoking h6, Fischer also slightly tricked Taimanov, because in the future the h6 pawn would be a target. So Fischer understood this rather well, while in his comments Taimanov remains very optimistic. Rook d2, knight d7, rook c d1, bishop d1. This is a typical regrouping to defend a4 and b3, and also to get some activity along this diagonal, because white is planning to play f4. Bishop d1, knight c5, f4. Well, again we see that a rook on f1 would have been most useful. But okay, this. And now the critical moment of the game arrives, at least from Black's point of view. Taimanov's comment is really interesting. He said that despite White's display of inventiveness, Black has the clear initiative. Well, I'm not sure that Black has the initiative. I mean, Black, for the time being, Black is consolidating, and he has a stable position and some blockade, but where is the initiative? White is not attacking anything. Black has no initiative at all. It's precisely what Fischer has been playing for. And Fischer is really so inventive. I mean, he just received Black's counterplay, and it was Black who invented some small things like bishop d7, h6. So I think that it's the other way around. White had some initiative, and Black was inventive enough to more or less neutralize it. The position is roughly equal, but still quite complicated. But now we see this target here. Taimanov suggests that rook e7 would have offered the Black an advantage. I'm not so sure if this is really true. I mean, okay, he has to free his bishop with f6 probably. Knight d5, bishop f5. I mean, first of all, White is very solid. It's not easy to make progress with Black, to suggest a pawn break or whatever. Secondly, if he takes on d5, then after e takes d5, the c2 bishop becomes very strong, especially with the pawn on h6. And secondly, White could also try such an attack with some reasonable compensation for the pawn. Okay, Black can most probably defend rook d7, rook f3. There are some dangers, but okay, over the board, it's not so easy to understand whether this is a real attack or not. It's probably just some reasonable compensation for white, but not more. In any case, probably feeling that his king side needs some defense. Time on of plate 96, which is a major inaccuracy indeed, because the knight belongs on a dark square. So starting with this point, actually, Fischer gets the initiative more and more. King h1, bishop c6, rook c3. Finally, the rooks are activated in a very nice way. The problem is that black cannot play this because he should lose the knight. So because the last move had just unpinned the rook. So he went knight g5. But okay, already the knight is on a seemingly active square, but very far from the blocking squares. I mean, the threat against d4 is not something so terrible. So little by little, actually, black is driven away from what is his main plan. And now, okay, he decided to eliminate this knight, which was quite annoying. Rook takes d5, queen c7. Now we can understand that somehow one of the merits of provoking a6, a5 has been revealed. The rook has free access to b5, which is something Fischer might have foreseen somehow intuitively. I don't claim that he saw this position, but he probably thought that there would be one day a rook on b5. For the time being, he activates his bishop with d5 and removes one more important defender of the c5 square. Now the blockade becomes a little bit problematic with the knight so far away. It's also now black has to avoid some simple tricks such as mate on the back rank. Rook db8 was played. It aimed to be a consolidating move, but it's actually, it can be considered a decisive mistake already. The problem is that he should have brought the knight closer to the c5 square. And even though white's position looks promising after this sequence, okay, for the moment the knight cannot get to c5, but black can hang on this position somehow. He's in some danger. His king is weak. h5 in the air. The rook may come to g3. But okay, he still keeps some stability. After rook db8, bishop f5, quite a strong move. Now the knight's access to e6 is denied. So now he can forget about blockading ideas. g6, h4, a strong intermediate move. Now the knight gets even farther from the thematic strategic fight. Sorry, I made a mistake here. He played first. In this position, he played. He exchanged queens and then did the same. Okay, we get this insertion of moves. Okay, we see that the knight jumps around quite a lot, but the bishop is very versatile in such situations. It keeps the knight under domination. The knight does not have many possibilities of maneuvering. Now the bishop wins an important tempo by attacking the enemy rook. Rook d7 and rook here, and suddenly it's quite unpleasant that the b6 pawn is attacked and pinned, and c5 is coming, and Well, the counterplay which was generated by this move does not lead to anything good for black. Look before, takes, and well, this is already an ending which is obviously very promising for black. Just look how the position for white. Sorry, just look how much the position has changed over the past moves. Black has no blockading plan on the queen side, and the a4 pawn, which apparently advanced in not a very favorable form for white, is now a very dangerous candidate to promotion. And Fischer did a good endgame job, and he won the game.